Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Defense of the Patients. I'm Cyphus, and today it's a blessing, a true blessing, to not have my typical co-host Roland because he's doing something in Las Vegas with a wife. I'm just hoping he doesn't gamble away all of his money and come back broke and penniless, because, you know, that's what happens when he goes to Vegas. So instead, you all get the wonderful, you know him from Theorycraft Thursdays and .p Q&As on Tuesday. That's right, Ursinity.
Hello. Yeah, I thought you were going to say Roland could gamble away his child. That was like what I was going to.
Sure.
You instead went for money and stuff. So
well,
that's some respect.
Depends on how, you know, dire things get down there.
I suppose.
Whether it goes to the kid.
We can win it back, right?
So we went down to Vegas. I mean, I'm sure we've told the story on the podcast before, but like we were really into poker, and we were studying it hard. And I fancied myself and still fancy myself like an average poker player, like a decent poker player. I'm not playing sheerly based off of luck by any means when I sit down. I've had some good runs. I've had some nights where, we used to go down to Wendover. It's like a 2.5 hour drive from where we're at. And it's just across the state lines, and you can get a legal poker game there. And they they play 1-2 poker, 1-2 hold'em, which is a nice like level for, you know, those of us who aren't rich, you know. Mm-hmm. And your minimum buy-in, you want to have 50 big blinds, right? Is what they call a bullet, right? So a bullet in poker is 50 big blinds. So you want to buy in with at least $100. You want to be able to sit through 50 big blinds before you have to reload. You know, there are definitely strategies and reasons to buy in with less, and certainly more strategies for buying in with more. But that 50 big blind is about your number. And I'd gone down there and had nights where like I ran up so much money that I was like, oh my God, I have a house payment in front of me. I have to walk away. I have to leave. And so I was feeling really confident. Like this is at a point where I was probably up like $3,500. I had made $3,500 playing poker at these types of tables over the course of like a month. And Roland went down because his wife has family down in just south of Las Vegas, and he had gone down there for a weekend with her, and he ran up something like $1,500 over the course of the weekend, maybe $2,000 over the course of the weekend. And he called me on the phone. And he was just telling me, he was like, man, I wish I could spend more time at the tables here because Vegas is where it's at. Like, I know why they come to Vegas now, because you get to sit at these tables with people who are from out of town and don't know how to play. And they're the fish. Like, those are the people you're looking for. The people who play based off of luck, who don't know that they're
drinking. Yeah.
And they're just completely fucking around. Those are the guys you want to get. Because compared to Wendover, where we normally go, it's a smaller community. And the guys who sit at those poker tables they're serious poker players. They, in some cases, are degenerates, you know, which works both for and against them often. You know, they're serious poker players. They're not there drinking. They're not there fucking around. They're there to win money and play poker at their best. So the thought of going down to Vegas was really tempting. And so I was like, all right, we'll do it. And he coaxed me into going down, and we went down the following weekend, and it was the weekend that they were hosting a major WSOP event, a World Series of Poker event. So we arrived, and instead of getting all the tourists at the 1-3 tables, it was all the guys who just got busted in the satellite tournaments and were just looking to kill time until the next satellite tournament into the WSOP event, and they were good fucking players. And we got roasted. I mean, just eaten alive. I that $3,500 that I had won the previous month, I was probably down $1,500 by the end of the weekend, and that's the curse of Roland. Is he goes down and he has this great time, and he sells me on, we're gonna hit all these tourists, and of course no research done, and we go down and just lose our asses. So I
sucks.
I suspect he'll play poker while he's down there. It's you know, it's a calling.
Yeah. I've never really studied poker, but I've historically, every time I've played poker, I've done quite well. Of course, against other people that really don't study or play poker, but I've done well for myself. I will say though, I've only been to a casino once, and I've only gambled once, and I'm up. I played blackjack. I was wasted, and I just stupidly was like, because we had gone to other places before the casino. and so we just went to the casino, and I was like, sure, whatever. Like, I'll sit down at a table. I only put down like $25 or $50 or whatever, and then I gambled it, and I doubled my money, and I got up to $100, and then I just left because it was like 2 a.m. and we were gonna leave because we had to drive back to. It was a ski trip, but I don't ski, so I basically just went to hang out and drink with my friends for like 6 days in a row.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Which is a source of many stories I will not tell on this podcast at this juncture. But yeah, so I'm up $50 gambling historically, and so now I just need to not gamble ever again, and I'll be up forever.
Yeah, it's dangerous. So the best game that you could play if you wanted to gamble, the best thing you can do, where you have the best odds in the house, is actually playing craps.
Yeah, I've heard that.
But you have to know what you're doing. Like, so many people hear that old adage, like the best odds in the house are craps at the craps tables.
Yeah, and they just assume they're gonna win.
Well, yeah, and they go and they sit down, and what they do is they and for those who don't know how to play craps, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to explain it to you here on a podcast. That's something you almost need to be at a craps table to properly see. But so much of it just rides around the fact that you know that statistically that that pair of dice is going to roll a 7 way more often than it's not. So what you do is you play the line, and that's basically just banking. You're betting that at first that it won't roll a 7, and that's it. You're banking on everything going around the 7. So you just play the line. If you play more than the line, you're screwed. That's what they do, so you see people sit down and think, oh, okay, I can play this, and they don't realize, like, oh, it's really only one bet at the table that has the best odds. If I bet on anything else, I've just substantially reduced my odds of winning. So, but blackjack's pretty good too. I mean, you ever count cards or learn how to count cards?
I mean, I know theoretically how to count cards. I know the process, but I do not have the mental acuity, nor have I practiced to actually count cards. I know that it's like one of those things that sounds a lot harder than it actually is.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I will say the one thing about poker for me is that my preference is for 5-card, but people always want to play Hold'em, and I like 5-card poker a lot. That's like my game. I can play Hold'em just fine.
Well, I like
5-card. That's my fun game.
There's more opportunity for strategy with Hold'em. And there's more opportunity for you to play a high value hand that connects with the board in Hold'em than there is for you to play 5-card draw and get anything decent. And there's more opportunity for you. When we're playing 5-card draw, I can't necessarily put you on a hand. If you throw away 2 cards in 5-card draw, that, especially depending on your skill level with 5-card draw, and you draw 2 more, it's really hard to decide like what you're drawing towards or what you're doing what hand you think you might have the opportunity to take to the end. Whereas with Hold'em, you can kind of monitor betting patterns, and you have this shared board where we can kind of read each other and how we're interacting with the board and how we're responding to the board. Where you can actually get to a point where, I mean, I can, with some players and in some circumstances based off of betting patterns, like I can put you on a hand. I can decide what you've got and whether or not it's valuable for me to try to outdraw you based off of the odds of me completing my hand to be best the hand that I've put you on.
Yeah.
You just don't get a 5-card draw. So
Yeah. Oh, I agree. I know, like Hold'em, of course, like there's a reason why it is the competitive poker. My thing, even poker, any like really competitive game I play is that I like the social dynamic almost more of it. Of bluffing and catching people on bluffs and stuff. And I've always historically been quite good at like the social dynamic of poker or of anything else, and like, God, when I play games, Dota less so because like I'm not in a room with people, obviously. But like whenever I play like any competitive in-person game, whether it's like something like poker or even something like beer pong or whatever, like I'm a very competitive person, and I also just like self-aggrandize to the max, and like I just play very erratic very erratic poker, which is like I just boast about my hand, things are going great, and sometimes I'm being completely truthful. And other times I'm lying completely, and like it just like is nonsense enough that like historically it's worked out.
Yeah.
And people like they're like, or like you play 4 hands where like you have a bad hand and you bluff, and you're like, oh man, this is great, and then you lose those hands or whatever, but you don't go hard in. And then
Yeah.
after like 4 hands of doing that, then you do the same thing again, but you actually have a good hand. Like that stuff obviously is not rocket science, but I love the kind of social dynamics of any kind of competitive game, whether it's like playing basketball and smack talking somebody to get them tilted, or even Dota, getting people tilted, like the famous Night Stalker guide where you just all chat flame the enemy to tilt them, stuff like that. I think
Yeah.
that's so interesting.
I've we'll segue over to Dota. I guess for the .p drinking game, every time Mia Roland brings up poker, that'd be a good one to take a dangerous
that would be
one.
a hard game.
Or proud with Lone Druid, perhaps. I suppose there's some
proud
good
with Dark Souls.
Yeah, there's some good .p drinking games potentials out there, but us bringing up poker, maybe the most dangerous
people
one.
Listen to podcasts while driving or at work, so probably don't play. Don't
no,
play
do
our
it.
drinking game.
That's don't drink in Dota, but drink and play the .p drinking game while you drive. That's a great time.
And Cyphus, you and I were getting pressured into not pressured. I shouldn't say that. It makes it sound like
encouraged.
Encouraged, very willingly by some people in the Discord that were like, "Oh man, it'd be so fun to do like a drunk Dota stream." Because we were saying that like that's something we've toyed around with the idea of doing, but we have not done in a very long time, and I've never done.
I don't think I've ever been drunk on stream either. I don't think I've been. I can probably count on like one or two on one hand, like the number of times I've been drunk since starting this podcast. It's definitely not something I do with frequency, I guess. I mean, I don't know. I've never been a real heavy drinker. When I do though, I mean, I have a good time with it for sure. But it's funny because literally after we were talking about that in the Discord, I've had bullshit in my trunk because I'm still in the process of selling a house, and like I'm temporarily staying with my grandmother, so it's while the house tries to sell, or while I try to get the house sold. So I have this very temporary like living situation going on. So I've had a ton of shit in my trunk. And we wanted to get the record player, which is something else we were talking about in the Discord recently, actually, coincidentally. It was in my trunk. So we wanted to get the record player out because it's basically like the best speaker system we have. I don't have stereos or all that bullshit anymore. It's all on the computer. So we went to get that out, and while I was looking in the trunk, I saw a big bottle of Maker's Mark that I have had apparently sitting in my trunk for God knows how long. That's like 3/4 full. So maybe drunk stream is maybe it's God trying to tell me to do the drunk stream, or see, maybe that's what it is.
That sounds likely. I just bought I really like gin. And it's one of those things I was saying in Discord, like I wish gin was not alcoholic so I could drink it more often. Like there's something about like gin's a very love it or hate. I know you like gin, but Hendrick's gin, I finally like last time I paid I splurged and it was like $60 or not 60, it was like $50 for like a middle-sized bottle of Hendrick's gin. But like man, a good gin and tonic is just like the greatest thing. And like I said, I would love to drink it all the time if it was non-alcoholic, but alas, I cannot just be drunk constantly. Anyway,
no, I'm with you.
I would be more than happy to do that at some special occasion or non-special occasion, like a Saturday.
That would, if it's on the weekend and I schedule in advance, and I don't scare my poor grandmother by being completely trashed sitting in front of my computer talking to what to her probably looks like myself.
It's funny. Yeah. It's one of those things where me and actually a couple friends have been talking about this recently, how there's this like weird social stigma against, we were talking about this on the Patreon episode actually, I think, or it might have just been the Wednesday show. There's this weird social stigma against like drinking alone, but honestly like it is so relaxing and fun. And like it's very different than like drinking out with friends and stuff. But it is funny to me how there is that social stigma as though like it's something that only alcoholics do, where in actuality like I don't drink often, but like I would rather drink and like with friends online or something a lot of times than like go out and be hassled and have to get an Uber and have to do all this like random BS. But yeah, man, I just like the taste. My God. Oh yeah. So anyway, we're gonna do maybe at some juncture, an unconfirmed date, a drunk stream.
I'm about it. We'll figure out a good time to do it.
It's always careful waters because, like, on one level, obviously we're all legal adults and we all drink responsibly, and we're at our homes, so there's no potential to like do stupid things like drunk drive. But at the same time, there is like, I'm always nervous about doing like a drunk stream, in that like you wouldn't want to romanticize that kind of thing to our younger audience, despite the fact that
Yeah.
our audience skews older than the primary Dota audience or whatever. I don't know. There's something like you don't want to end up like the old Grant streams, for instance. Like it, it's just like it's just one of those things. I don't know. It's like
I think
the fine line
after
between
seeing
like
you drunk and knowing how I get drunk, Roland would be the one. Roland and Proud are the two that I wonder what they'd be like
Brad
drunk.
doesn't drink.
Oh, okay, that's right. That's right. So, well,
Yeah.
I Roland, I worry a little about because he,
I worry about him sober.
yeah, right, exactly. I just make a fool of myself when I'm drunk. Like I'm just a fool. I'm just having fun. I think everybody's favorite drunk stories regarding me are me getting drunk and apparently singing Love Shack all night, which I was unaware that I vaguely recall doing that, very vaguely. And then apparently I went off on a 30-minute tirade about how ridiculous it was, how that the Catholic Church both instigated the burning of Joan of Arc at the stake and then later made her a saint. I had a good 30-minute tirade about that.
Man, yeah, I have a lot of stories. I will say, like, I admire people that have a consistent drunk state, because mine, I like vary greatly depending on who I'm with. And like some people, they're like, oh, if I drink tequila, like it's this way, and if I drink something else, it's that way. For me, it just depends who I'm with, because it can either be like a real introspective, like quiet, or it can be like the stupid, like fun drunk, which is the like 80% of the time thing. Or in other instances, it's like the super competitive, like if you're playing games, and that also leads into just being a jerk. And like in a funny way, but funny to the people surrounding, not funny to the people I'm being rude to. Like I'll tell a really quick story. And again, like I'm even feel like a little self-conscious about talking about like drinking on a podcast, just because like you never know, right? It's kind of like a taboo subject.
Yeah.
One quick story I will say is probably the most intoxicated I've been all summer. Was my friend had a pool party, and late at night I was like blasted. Like I had clearly my proportions were off. And so I got to like one of those states where it's like you're real bad. Not like I don't really get sick while drinking, but like close to that point. And me and a couple a couple girls that I'm not like I'm friends with, acquaintances with, but not like we all kind of don't like each other, but we're like in the same circles, because they're like, when you think of the term basic, they are the epitome of that and kind of embrace that culture. Anyway, they're really annoying. So I ended up being alone with two of them at this house, and we were just talking or whatever. And again, I was very not in the right state of mind. And so my filter dropped, and I just basically told them that. Also, I didn't know that I said all this until the next party, and they were like, "Oh, hey Sam, how's it going? Like, do you remember what you told us last time?" And so I was told this secondhand by them. But anyway, I basically told them that they were not pretty and had mediocre personalities at best. At like 2 a.m. at our friend's house, and then like, but I didn't know this, right? So then like weeks went by, and I finally saw these people again, and also I believed that about them. So I'm not like, it was not a lie. I was just being a jerk, because that's just what happens when you're with people you don't like and you're intoxicated. But
Yeah.
so the next party happens, and I'm making all my hellos, whatever, and they kind of laugh at me, and they're like, "Sam, do you remember like what you told us like last time we were with us?" I was like, I don't know. Like, made a joke. I was like, I wasn't even there, because I was just so three sheets to the wind. And they were like, "Yeah, last time we hung out, you told us that we were not pretty and had awful personalities." It's like, boy, I apologize, and that was
Should have
not
just
a
looked at
good
him and been
time.
like, facts is facts, ladies.
Yeah. But then that night I was DDing, and one of them threw up in my car, and so that made up for it. But I will never hear the end of that event where I just told them both that they were awful. And to be fair, they are like they're not nice people.
Yeah.
But that's probably one of my more tame drinking stories, I'll say. Things tend to happen, right? When you're like a college student and you have college student friends, and you live in a small town, and there's not much else to do. Boy.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Oh yeah.
Dota 2.
Oh yeah, Dota 2. That's what this podcast
I'm
is.
usually not a jerk when I play Dota 2, though sometimes you want to be.
Yeah.
I will say.
Oh god. Yeah. Don't I know it? I've been playing on this week. This has been a strange week for me with Dota because I've probably been watching more Dota than I have been playing, just because sometimes just how it pans out. Like I'm able to watch a little at work periodically. So especially when I have downtime, and frequently there's downtime out of my job. Like it comes and goes in waves. How busy we are. So I've had a good opportunity to watch Dota this week. I caught up like on the DAC stuff that I had missed, and started into the elimination mode thanks to Juice, who reminded me that was going on whenever I was feeling the empty void of the DAC. But and then of course we have the recording the Tuesday Q&A Monday nights. Like I do like half-hour prep before that, and it's tough to have the time to play a full game right before we record.
I feel you.
With where I get off work, and then it's usually too late to start up a game for me, unfortunately, after we finish recording. So and then we did that Patreon episode. Was that Tuesday night, I want to say?
Yeah, Tuesday, because it came out on the 15th.
Yeah, so
which has gotten great response, by the way. I'm very happy with how that went. People seem to like it a lot.
Yeah, so. And we already got a little feedback. I think it might have been Lord Day who hit us up with some potential feedback for the next episode, and I'm glad that's what people were looking for, because that was my big concern, was that we were if you're donating to Patreon, I want to make sure we're giving you the kinds of Patreon episodes that the people who love the show enough to donate to it, are interested in getting. So I mean, that was a 2-hour recording, and then we like immediately after that recorded like an hour plus show with for the Wednesday release. So all of that killed my Dota time completely. Yeah. And last night I had to do the rescheduled Valentine's Day, so I've got like 1 or 2 games in this week, and the one game I got in was on my recalibration account. That I felt like I played really well. In fact, here, I'll send you the link so you know what I'm talking about.
Sure.
So I played PA because it was one of those situations where I picked the PA second. It was a random draft game. I was looking at the viable carries that were there. I typically don't like to pick PA into like illusion heavy drafts that are going to be potentially coming from the enemy team. I looked at the list of heroes that were available. There were no CKs, there were no PLs, there was no Luna, there was no SD. So I thought to myself, okay, I don't have to worry about like knowing, because I definitely feel like one of the like gaps in my knowledge with PA is like when I should pick up the Battle Fury on her. Because I do like doing
which is never.
Yeah, because I mean, yeah, you're right. I guess I could have gone Mjolnir on her if I wanted to try to deal with illusions, that kind of shit. But
wait, you didn't even build a Battle Fury this game.
No, I did not. No. That's what I'm saying. Good. Is like it's only against like I hate picking PA, or at least this is my own personal experience playing PA. The only time I hate playing her is whenever I'm playing against a heavy illusion draft. Like it's no fun to play PA into a PL or a CK. And have them hit any sort of power spike. So I was looking at the draft of like things that could potentially come out in this game, and I wasn't too frightened of anything. I think the thing that like maybe scared me most in the match was the Invoker, because but even Invoker I felt like I could I knew how to deal with. But our guy was going to pick up the Invoker, so I second picked the PA. And a large part of why I did this too was because I felt like in my mind that PA was a hero that it's not like they were going to pick up a counter for her. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They weren't going.
It's the thing about random draft, right?
Yeah. Well, and more importantly, I guess like it's hard for me to place in my mind like who the big hero counters to PA really are. I mean, off the top of my head, I guess Jug maybe feels like a good PA counter.
I mean, just to make the generalized statement, anybody that builds Silver Edge naturally, and anybody that builds MKB naturally, right? So Jug, he's decent against PA because he has the slot to build an MKB in the late game. But a hero like Gyrocopter, even though is pretty unfavorable right now, he's a natural hero that's just like, yeah, I'm just gonna build an MKB, right? So that's a
Right.
big problem for PA. Or like Slark, where it's like, okay, I'm just gonna build a Silver Edge and screw you, PA.
Yeah, and thankfully,
Those are like,
there was no Slark in the pool. There was a Jug in the pool. I bring up Jug because he ended up getting picked, and in that match, I think, yeah. I only brought up Jug because remember the thought that crossed my mind was, God only knows what level of skill that I'm playing at going into this match, because it's a recalibration match on this account, like 50 games in, and
it looks like mid 2K, judging by the people that are in the game.
yeah. So, but I mean, of course, I have no idea going into it, like what it was going to be. So in my brain, I was thinking, I guess I could see a Jug off lane potentially from these guys. That might not be fun. Other than that, like I wasn't too frightened of anything. But it got me thinking about how I guess I feel like I go through these ebbs and flows of feeling like I know the carries that are okay to pick up early in a draft, and then and then other times I have no idea. Like I'll be like, fuck, I feel like I need to pick up a carry next here. I feel like I'm the one who's going to kind of be forced into picking this because, for whatever reason, my team doesn't want to lock a support, or my offlaner thinks he's got to get the last pick, or my mid wants the last pick, which is probably the only one that I ever truly respect is the mid wanting to get the last pick. Beyond that, like I guess I don't know who I should pick up early if I'm going to pick up a carry early. You know what I mean?
I mean, like, so even extrapolating this to not only the carry position, right? The heroes that you want to pick early, when you have to, are just heroes that are well-rounded or don't have specific counters. Like Luna is a good example. We talked about this on the Thursday show, I think, probably. She has very few counters, and even her counters are kind of like side counters. Like they counter her way of playing, but they don't actually counter the hero.
Mm.
So that's why like first picking somebody like Luna is good, and that's why first picking something like PL is bad, right? Because PL is a niche hero that has a ton of counters, right? Because like if you fifth pick a PL, like we actually did in the Theory Crafting Thursday game, he's very good against single target heroes like PA, for instance, or like Lifestealer. But if you first pick him, they're just gonna pick like Gyrocopter and then Earthshaker and a bunch of other things, right? So
Yeah.
you don't want to go into a game and think, okay, I'm gonna first pick Wraith King, because they're gonna pick a bunch of what's called minus magic diffusal blade type heroes, mana burn.
Yeah.
So that's basically like the idea, right? Carries that you first pick are heroes like in days past Gyrocopter, which I don't know why my mind keeps going to Gyrocopter, but here's like Juggernaut, right? Juggernaut does not have easy counters. Even Slark is okay because his counters are not super high pick rate. Like Lifestealer count. Jesus Christ, I'm like a mess right now. The Slark counters are something that is more like team coordination, and there are specific heroes like Bloodseeker, but really that's like, if they've committed a Bloodseeker, then you could pick any of their number of heroes. So in the same vein, like supports, right? You want to pick supports that, if you're first picking, again, something like Rubik or Shadow Demon less so, but Rubik is the perfect example where he has a very generalized kit and he doesn't have direct counters, while he doesn't really directly counter other things. Similarly, a hero like Winter Wyvern, who in days past I would have first picked, now I would not first pick because she counters a specific thing, right? Whereas now it's like, okay, if you have a fourth pick Winter Wyvern as your second support or your first support, that's great because they picked a CK or they picked X, Y, or Z, and you're gonna wreck them with your ult. But if you first pick it, they're just gonna pick a bunch of ranged heroes and like skirt you, and you're just gonna be irrelevant.
Right.
So that's basically the idea when first picking any core or support or just hero in general. It's harder in random draft because like you could, like, let's say in random draft, first pick PL might be decent in random draft some games because Earthshaker's not in the pool and Sand King's not in the pool and Gyrocopter's not in the pool and X, Y, and Z are not in the pool, right? So a random draft does have some additional X factors, but I would say like PA is not absolutely terrible to pick early. She just like you have to acknowledge what you should be concerned about.
Right. Yeah,
Like
and
I was first picking PA mid for a while just to practice it.
I mean, and don't get me wrong, like this was, I lost this game for the audience out there, but did decently. Close. I mean, yeah, it was definitely a close game. We at one point I remember we had we traded Rax for Roche. They took Roche, we took Rax.
Yeah.
And that I thought for a moment that was going to be I thought that for a moment that was going to swing things back our direction, but unfortunately it just didn't.
Yeah. I mean, that all depends on the phase of the game that you make that trade. Like, you make that trade at 30 minutes, it's great. But if you make that trade at 60 minutes, it's irrelevant, right? Because it's something that, like, I feel like a lot of people don't quite get, myself included sometimes when I'm making these late game decisions. But Raxes are not that important at a certain point in the game. Like, Mega Creeps obviously are a huge deal. But if you, like I said, like, this game was 64 minutes long. If you guys take 2 lanes of Rax at 60 minutes, but then 2 of you die and don't have buyback, you lose the game. Like, who cares about 2 lanes of Rax? It's 64 minutes. Everybody has items. Everybody can kill Mega Creeps or Super Creeps. So, like, whatever, right? So in the super late game, you either just need to take 1 Rax and go for tier 4s, or you need to get Megas. And even Megas sometimes is not a guaranteed win. I've won... not a lot of games against Megas, but I've won a not zero amount of games against Mega Creeps.
Yeah, oh for sure. I mean, we have as well. It happens. Definitely, it's never a good indication. If you're gonna, speaking of betting, if you're gonna place a bet on who's gonna win, the team with Mega Creeps or the team without, like, you 9 times out of 10 can probably bet on the team with Mega Creeps, and you're probably right. 1 time in 10 maybe, or maybe the odds are even worse than that. Yeah, you can kind of come back from it. I mean, I definitely get what you're saying there. I don't know, a lot of, I mean, I guess lose that game was semi painful to lose because I was wrecking it for a while. it was going well.
Yeah.
And the Invoker was exceptionally good. I mean, his
item build is pretty terrible, but his score is good.
Yeah, his
he went Scotty Mjolnir AC.
Yeah,
like an old build.
Yeah,
because people used to do that like Wexort, and they would just go like, you build like your basic starter items, like you still go like, Midas, 4 staff, travels, and then you go Ags. But then after that, you scale into like you get a Maelstrom, and then you get a sheep stick, and then you get Bloodthorn and stuff. I used to play a lot of Scotty Invoker, and I still don't think Scotty Invoker is that bad. It's just like, nowadays he builds so many other items. It's like, why? In what world do I want a Scotty?
I mean, he was doing good. I would say the bigger issue for us in that game was we lost an early advantage that we ended up being able to take, largely because we didn't have vision for a very long time in that game, because we had a treant who was insisting that I know we don't have vision right now, guys, but I'm gonna get my Ags, and then we're gonna have
which he got at 35 minutes.
Yeah. And we had, I mean, you can always kind of feel who's in the lead. I feel like in a Dota game, or more often than not, you can feel who's in the lead without even knowing the actual stats. And I'd say like for the first 20 minutes, it felt like they were in the lead. And then, once I had that Deso online, once Invoker, had secured whatever, I can't remember what item he had picked up. It was his Ags. We took a couple of fights that went really well, that went our way. We were behind in the kill count. We ended up kind of retaking the lead at least for the kill score. And at one point, and I remember saying to the guy, it's like, we need vision now. And his comment to me was, I know we need it, but I'm trying to save up for this Ags. This Ags. And I remember telling him the vision the delay on your Ags is, and the vision we would gain right now, because it was one of those situations where I'm looking at the shop and there are 4 wards off, on cooldown.
Yeah. For context, I'm sorry, not to interrupt, but just for context, he bought 8 wards, including 4 sentries before 35 minutes, which is like not a whole lot of wards, to put it lightly.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely painful, and there were for instance, my first death in the game was when they didn't smoke, they didn't do anything. Our team was fighting in the bottom lane. I saw 3 heroes down there, I mean, I wasn't even past the river farming up in the top lane. And then before I knew it, I had, 3 enemies. I had 2 enemies in the lane, so I was backing up a little bit. And then coming up behind me, 3 enemies in our jungle, and I realized, oh shit, they're all 5 here. The entire team is here. They weren't smoked. Nobody had a shadow blade. Nobody was invis. They had walked through our jungle and it was one of those moments that made me want to rage a little bit, but I was like, all right, hey, we got to get wards up, man. Really need those. We're losing this tier 1 tower top right now because we have no vision. And it was true. Like I would have seen every one of them coming up after me had there been a single ward anywhere in our jungle or maybe anywhere in the river. I would have known that rotation was happening, that was going on. Because I'm guessing that what they did was TP to their shrine top and then come up through the jungle to try to wrap around me. And it worked. And it worked because there was not a single ward on the map. But that's more of an aside. The other thing that popped into my mind this game was trying to decide how much I should prioritize when I pick up BKB. Because I was looking at this lineup and I wasn't. So the Jakiro was pretty good. The enemy Jakiro with his Macropyre, we were always kind of forced to fight around the Macropyre, and it definitely made us have to, if we didn't want to just burn alive inside of it, we had to relocate or reposition ourselves. And it more often than not resulted in us having to reposition ourselves into less advantageous positions. So I mean, it was. It definitely made me want to make sure that I was properly utilizing Jakiro in the future whenever I'm playing him with that Macropyre. Because it changed the course of a lot of fights, not even because it was dishing out a lot of damage, but just because it was changing where I could go, where I could feasibly move. And with PA, I want to be getting in close. I want to be moving in. I want to be hurting people. I want to be right up in your face. I want to be jumping in right up in your face, and if I have to jump into Macropyre to get up in your face, well, that's an issue. So that coupled with the Wraith King stun, that for me was enough, and I suppose even Rot to a degree from their Pudge, that was enough for me to want to pick up the BKB. But I wondered as that game went on if it wouldn't have been more advantageous to pick up a different item before I went to the BKB. Like if I had gone, instead of going Vanguard, Deso, BKB, if I had gone Vanguard, Deso, maybe MKB, because I could see that the Jug was going to go Butterfly pretty early. In fact, I want to say he picked up his Talisman of Evasion first, and I will check. We saw it on him.
He built his Talisman of Evasion first. Yeah, he built his Talisman of Evasion 3 minutes before he got his Quarterstaff, and effectively 7 minutes before he finished his Butterfly.
Yeah, so I mean, it was pretty obvious that that's where he was going to go, was the Butterfly. And so part of me wonders if maybe I hadn't gone MKB before I went BKB, if I wouldn't, and he was the problem. His score doesn't necessarily portray it, maybe his KDA, but he was the issue because he was pushing down buildings fast. He had picked up his Manta. He was doing the right thing. I mean, we could beat him in a fight if we could isolate him. But that evasion was an issue for me. And I can't remember. I know the MKB was pretty late in his build, but
he got Butterfly at 50 minutes in a 64-minute game, and he got his MKB at 54 minutes.
Yeah.
So they were not a problem until very late. Although obviously, like we said, the Talisman Evasion came out earlier. I think so. Again, for context, for anybody not looking at Dota Buff right now, he finished his Desolator at 19 minutes with a Vanguard done at 15, and Phase Boots, of course, and then he went BKB, which he finished at 30, Assault Curious, Jesus, what's it called, Abyssal Blade, that he finished at 40.
Yeah.
Then you finished an SNY at 45 minutes.
I know, and that was a huge mistake. I don't know why I did it. I don't know why I did it.
So I think to fix this, basically, what I would have done is, in place of the SNY, I would have gone MKB. Alternatively, I would have, because SNY got a lot of buffs. Honestly, I don't think the item's that bad compared to what it used to be.
I remember thinking I wanted stats, and I didn't want to go Scotty necessarily.
Yeah.
And honestly, I regretted it the moment I built the Yasha. The moment I built the Yasha, I regretted it because I think that was about the time. Now that I'm remembering this, I think that was about the time that I saw the Talisman Evasion from the
almost
jug.
exactly.
Yeah,
I mean, you could have gone Manta, just to like dodge Wraith King Blast and dodge Pudge and other things just for general confusion. I think what I would have done anyway is just once you finish that SNY, instead of going, because you finished Boots of Travel next, what I would have done is I would have kept my phase boots, built an MKB, and just kept a TP scroll in your backpack, and then you had an MK. Then you would have had an MKB in that like 50 some odd minutes. That would have been fine, honestly. I think like the play optimally, if you knew, obviously, if you had full information of the game, which obviously you did not, you would have built an MKB right after Abyssal Blade and then gone back for like a Scotty or something as your last item, or even SNY. Like SNY, honestly, like it's kind of gotten crapped on recently, but it got buffed in last patch, and like honestly, I don't think it's that bad of an item, especially on here like DA. Yeah. So I think that would have been the optimal play. And you were going for a Satanic last, and like Satanic, I'm not super into.
Yeah, I wasn't either. The Satanic was a pickup on the advice of the Invoker, who at the time I was thinking, all right, he's got Scotty, he's doing well. I guess part of my issue is that because I wasn't dying, I wasn't getting burst down in fights. I was, you know, I mean, it was still a slow roll to take me down, and so I guess part of me thought, yeah, all right, I see what he's saying. Like if I have the Satanic, I'm not. It's not like I'm going from. It's not like I'm getting stunned and then I'm just insta dead. I'm getting stunned and then I'm getting brought down to about half, and then it's getting into the danger zone, and I either have to blink strike out of the fight, or or I hang around and potentially die if blink strikes on cooldown. If I blink struck in and got stunned or something shitty happened. So I and again, like I said, it was. That and the SNY were big regrets. I know I could have. I know I could have done the MKB.
It's just
I know I should have.
Like honestly, it's just a rough game. I think like one of the big things is especially on PA and other heroes, like I don't know why Gyrocopter keeps coming up because nobody plays this hero.
Hey, I've been playing Gyro lately.
Like I mean, I think Gyrocopter. I don't think he's a good hero per se, but I like him. Just in general.
He's a fun hero.
PA and Gyrocopter and these other, and like CK for instance, these heroes that build BKB early, they do have the common problem where you're going to run down to your 5-second BKB at a time where other people are just getting their BKBs. Like for instance, in this game, Jug built a BKB, but he finishes 10 minutes later than yours, right? So let's assume conservatively you use 2 BKB charges. So you're now entering fights with a 7-second BKB where he has a 10 on top of Blade Spin. Honestly, I don't think he should have built a BKB. But yeah, so that's kind of the common issue on PA among other heroes, is that the game went long and they had a team that you really needed a BKB against, which means its effective time was not long enough for you guys to close the game out, right? Like that's clearly what happened. Yeah, also they had a lot of cores that like hassled you, right? And like
for sure. I mean, it was it was a game I knew that if it went too late, especially between the like I said, the issue we were having with Vision, the issue we were having with the Treant. I mean, they picked up a gem for that Treant pretty early, and it was it's not like we had a lineup that. It's not like we had a lineup that if they lost the gem, which eventually they did, that like they suffered for us having the gem. You know what I mean? And we didn't have wards or anything out anyway. But they picked up that gem for Tree, and they made his life pretty much a living hell. Even after he got his ags, it was one of those situations where it was like, hey, you waited so long to get Vision up, and you got your ags, and now they've just got a gem, and they're just going around dewarding us anyway. So it didn't really help all that much. And all of his I forget what the Eyes in the Forest, is that what it is?
Yes, that's what it's called.
All of his Eyes in the Forest were on our side. We had no aggressive Eyes in the Forest. Yeah, they were all completely defensive, and that was another huge issue. I could only track the enemy movement once they were on our side, and by then we were playing defense. And then our Slardar kept kind of DCing, so we had the Slardar definitely wasn't able to ever get off the ground.
It's your basic rough game, basically.
Yeah,
Like, a lot of little things amounted to one big loss.
Yeah, because there, it was it was a game where I knew we were fighting well. I mean, we were doing everything we could. I there were several moments in that game where I was like, oh yeah, we can win this. We are gonna win this. And just the tiny things. And then I've thought about this game constantly since I've played it. Just because it's the kind of game that if I were to request a replay for, like, speaking of Patreon, patreon.com/defense of the patience, get RC to do a replay. It's the kind of game I would submit for a replay because I think it's the kind of game I would learn the most from having reviewed.
Because it was close.
Yeah, it was super close. I know it was easy to identify. Yes, like there were mistakes made by literally every one of my teammates, myself included. And it's one of those where I genuinely felt like in this game at the end of it, if I had been able to identify my own missteps in item build, in item prioritization, in maybe even my positioning or some of the tactical decisions that we made, like I know if I could have changed those, I could have been the reason we won the game. I could have brought it back. I could have put us over the line to take that victory. Because I mean, this was one where like they took racks and then pushed to win. I mean, it was that kind of a situation. Like we got the first set of racks, they got the second set of racks, and then they pushed for victory.
Yeah,
but I don't know.
It is rough. Like obviously there are all kinds of smaller issues right in a game, but I'd say most losses or most wins are attributed to a lot of little things rather than one big thing, right? So occasionally it's like, okay, well the enemy team had some smurf that like just stomped all over us, or vice versa. My team had some guy that intentionally fed. That is the minority of games, right? Most games, it's like, okay, well, I got my BKB 3 minutes late, which meant that we lost a fight 2 minutes ago, and that all happened because my lane was contested because they had a duo lane and we had a jungler or something.
Yeah.
Right? And those little things amount to a much larger thing, and that's why they say it's kind of like the butterfly effect, right? Like a butterfly flaps its wings. It's like if you miss 3 CS in a laning phase, suddenly, you didn't get you didn't finish your Vanguard, and then they ganked you because you were 100 gold short. When if you had gotten 3 extra CS, you would have had your Vanguard at 10 minutes instead of 10 minutes and 30 seconds. And then, you live through a gank, then they die because they dive you too far because it's close, and then, X, Y, and Z happens, and then that's a big win for you. Yeah. And then, your support gets 6, and then your support ganks the lane with 6, and it's a Warlock, and then you take two towers with a Golem. Like these kind of things that snowballs real hard, right? So that's just Dota 2, right?
Yeah, for sure. I guess I mean it was a fun game to play. I mean it regardless. I mean like I don't look back on that game with any malice, I guess, towards anybody I played with. Like even the Treant was super communicative. He was trying, and it was just that he was trying, and he was doing something. He's doing something I've seen Roland do on Treant. Like I remember, like like no joke. Like I have a vivid memory of a game where he wasn't buying wards because he was going to rush an Aghanims first on Treant. I think he even picked up like a Midas first to do it. And he was just going to get vision up all over the map, and like that was his game plan. Like that was his game plan from before the game started.
And, like, oh boy, I lost this last game, so I'm gonna do it, and it's gonna be great.
And don't get me wrong, like the tree was doing great things. He was supporting me really well in lane. He was harassing the enemy. He was keeping living armor going, and not just on me, but all over the map. And he even went mana boots first to make sure that we had mana. Like he didn't even do. It wasn't like that level of shittiness. It was he still picked up an item before he went for that Ags. We needed him to do a little bit extra. But he was a good guy. The Necro was was interesting.
Yeah,
he was out of position.
Because normally you want to have a Necro in these like super long games, but alas, it did not work out. It's funny, you can continue, but it's just funny you bring up like, oh, you're talking about the Treant. And of course, we've been complaining about him. But then at the same time, you add on, like, oh, he's a nice guy at the end. And I do that the same thing, but at the same time, like, I don't want to play with nice people. I want to play with people that do the right things.
Yeah, and you know that definitely was a thought that I had in my mind. I mean, I wasn't disappointed in my KDA at the end of it, and I know that's a huge portion of like what's going to help determine the MMR on that account and whatnot. So
It's not. Yeah.
you know, so it whatever. I lost a game. It sucks. The Necro, I'll say, was out of position all the goddamn time. That guy, he wasn't intentionally feeding, but he was going for hero plays, you know, where he was
playing the Roland game.
Yeah, I mean, no, and that verbatim was the thought that I had in my mind. It was like, oh man, he's playing like the Roland hero
It's
stuff.
Roland's
like,
next Smurf that you're playing.
Yeah, he, I mean, he would do things like he would dive. And I can't tell you how many times I saw him burn that Reaper Scythe on somebody and then it just take them to like 3% health remaining. He was just outside the window because he was trying to do hero shit. And whatever he was doing was, I'm sure it was that kind of stuff. Like I didn't pay that much attention to the Necro until probably like 15 minutes into the game. And then I got to see, oh shit, this is what this guy's been doing all game, based on his KDA at the time. But I know he was pissing off the Slardar pretty heavily as well. So
yeah,
it happens. And that Slardar was DCing all the time. But God, it was a good game. It was so close. I wanted that so bad.
Yeah, I've had a lot of long games as well recently. So being that this is the Friday show and we already recorded the Thursday show, my week in Dota has not changed whatsoever since last night. But I've had a lot of really good games recently. And it is nice to either have games that you lose and you think I learned something, or you win and you think, wow, that was really satisfying to win. And ideally, hopefully, you learn something. I'm excited to just get to play more Dota. Like, I've gotten really sidetracked from Dota. Where, like, I'm still playing, of course, but I'm playing less because, like, between recording a lot of shows, like, as much as we talk about Dota, and that's like informative to us, and like it informs your opinions on things, and you learn things. But at the same time, it means you're not playing Dota because you're spending 2 hours recording a show.
Right.
And like I've just been doing other things. Like I've been playing Skyrim for the first time since it came out. Like when it came out, I played it, and I've been replaying it, and that game is just like fun to like pop in for 30 minutes and just play and then leave.
I was surprised to hear you say that you didn't notice the graphics difference between the original Skyrim and the re-release.
It's still not great.
I mean, but it does look better.
Fine. Oh, I mean, I'll take your word for it.
I don't know.
I played it on Xbox 360 when it came out, and it was like I bought it with like I somehow managed to scrounge up $60 as a poor high school student with no job, and that was like the game. But
I thought it looked. I do think that game looks a lot better than it used to.
And like I've been finishing reading my books, which of course people have responded very well to Dopkey Book Club, which we did on Thursday for the intro, which was surprising to me. But so I have not been playing a tremendous amount of Dota. Like I'm still obviously talking about Dota and focusing on Dota and thinking about Dota a lot, but I need to I'm excited to like really sit down and just like play a ton of Dota over the next like this weekend. I'm going to be busy doing all the replay reviews because we have, as expected, and I'm more than happy to do it. But we have amassed quite a few that we need to do. I need to do, and so probably not much Dota this weekend. But I'm looking forward to like having a serious week where I'm going to pub like 3 or 4 games a night every night and like get nose to the grindstone busy.
Yeah. Well, I'm the same way. I have President's Day off, so I'm gonna hit the lanes hard. That's my plan going forward. I hope that's what everybody's doing who's listening to this show.
Cyphers, I have a side question before we end the show.
All right.
Because you know, driving is different depending on where you are. Like people just drive differently, and there's different like social customs to driving.
Sure.
If you're in a parking lot, would you, and you're about to pull into a space, would you like, also I know that you're not like, that you're like a rude driver, from what I hear. Would you ever put your blinker on to say like, I'm turning into that space on the left?
Yeah, I frequently do that. I mean,
Man,
I don't think you have to do that. I think it's good to do it. I think it's good to do it, one, if you see another car coming from the other direction, or there's a car behind you and you want to let them know, hey, I'm not delaying you because I'm an asshole. I'm delaying you because I'm going to pull into a space.
Man, I'm surprised because I'm a very polite driver. As somebody who has been hit by a car and almost died, it makes you into a really nice driver.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
So I'm a good driver. I'm a safe driver, but I would never think to do that because like it's so obvious if I'm pulling into a spot. like I'm driving at 2 miles an hour
Yeah,
and you're in
yeah,
a parking lot. Like I feel like it's one of those. I have had this argument with specifically my mom, who's like the super safe driver to the point that like it is dangerous.
yeah.
Um, and like those. I mean, this is unnecessary, but like she signals too much. Like when a lane is offering you a left turn, but you're going right, but right is like the proper way, like the straight, like straight turns right, but the alternate turns left. Some people would turn their blinker on because they are trending left or trending right, excuse me, even though that's just the way the road goes.
Right.
Like
That is
they're
my
signaling
pet.
right to
That is my
but they're
pet
not going.
peeve, and
I hate that so much.
yeah, I do. I have on occasion done it accidentally, like where I'm like, where just absentmindedly, like, oh, I'm turning, and I'll flip it on and be like, oh my god, what did I just do? And I'll flip it off.
Yeah.
Um,
It like I've almost hit people because I think like thinking about a very specific intersection where near me where there is a parking lot on the right. So I'm like, oh, they're going to this restaurant and they have their right blinker on, and so
you
I'm
start to
like,
hop in like the left lane or veer a little left, but to pass them,
yeah,
assuming they're going to be slowing down and pulling in, but in fact they're just taking the
yeah,
turn.
but instead they're just an idiot. Like,
Yeah.
oh God. But anyway, so because a friend of mine, I was just looking at this, she made a poll. 31 people voted, and only 3% of people thought that it was overkill to signal when you're in a parking lot. 97% of people thought it was polite to signal in a parking lot that you're parking in a spot.
Like I
Dude,
said, if somebody's behind, I guess when I say if somebody's behind me or if a car is coming, I'm thinking more to let them know that that's my, and somebody is pulling out of the spot that I'm going into. I think that's more when I use the turn signal.
that's fair.
Yeah, like to let them know this is my intent, this is where I'm going. If you're behind me and you are like, what the fuck is this guy doing? All these spots are full, and I turn on my signal, that is a good indicator to you, like, hey, there's a spot about to open, and I'm gonna snag it. Sorry, you gotta wait too.
Yeah, that's fair. If there's like a waiting period, yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
that's like a super off-topic thing, but this is something like
It's all right. This is
I
the
don't know.
Friday show. That's when we're supposed to do it.
I'm fascinated with all these little social interactions, like whether it's driving or walking or anything. Like I'm just fascinated how different people approach things differently, and like the social norms from like the Midwest to the West Coast to the East Coast to like the South. Like they always have like minor variations on things. It's great.
I was reading this culmination of studies where they'd been studying like traffic incidents and whatnot in every state across the nation. And the to put it in context, the declaration was made based off of the number of minor traffic incidences, meaning like fender benders, car wrecks, side swipes, that kind of shit. Utah has the worst drivers per capita.
Huh.
They are hands down the worst, and I'll say it rings true to me after the few incidents that I've had in my car, where
Yeah. I will say, so I've never been in a car accident, but I got hit by a car, which, I mean, I don't really feel like I need to tell the whole story, but I got hit by a car while I was walking, and like I got like 3 skull fractures, and like my brain was bleeding,
Jesus.
and like it was not a good time. But so since then, that's made me a really good driver because like I'm cautious because hey, I don't want to like almost die,
Yeah.
or almost kill somebody. But the thing about my area is that my specific part of my suburb is where all the kids that are learning to drive go because there's tons of open parallel areas and there's enough cars parked on the street to like train to parallel park. And so like I never park my car on the street. And my dad, his car is like old, like he has like a 1995 Corolla that he just does not care about whatsoever. And so he just parks on the street and like people practice parallel parking. He has like so many dings and stuff. But so we get tons and tons of student drivers in my area, and like we're bordering a lot of colleges, so we have a lot of college kids that drive, and like a lot of like school kids that drive, and a lot of old people that drive, and so we get some real bad drivers in my area, but not like systemic. It's just like my little corner of New York.
Yeah, makes
But
sense.
yeah.
Well,
Anyway, that's my tangent about driving.
I'm with you. I could complain. I could complain all day. All right.
Yeah,
I really
feel
could.
you there. It's not that hard. It's not that hard.
No,
I say this with Dota all the time too. Like Dota is not that hard of a game. It's just the specifics that are difficult.
Right.
But people make it difficult because their attitudes. And Dota is similar. where
Well, and preconceived
so
notions.
driving is similar.
I mean, you want to talk about the best comparison are the weird, the weird preconceived notions that everybody kind of has going into a game, or not, and hopping in, behind the wheel of their car, or not paying attention to to recent changes in the laws, right?
Yeah. They didn't read patch notes, government patch notes.
Well, I mean, I see it all the time with, we started doing, I don't know if you guys are doing it yet back east, or maybe you guys started the trend. The blinking yellow left turn signal. Are you familiar with that at all?
No, I mean, we have like the blinking amber lights where it's like, be careful,
Yeah.
but go.
So one thing they've done to minimize traffic fatalities and traffic accidents out west is, so it used to be, you had your red turn, you had your red, right? Red stop across the board. And then you'd have those lights that have a split, right, for the left turn lane. And the one on the left was an indicator for the left turn lane, and the one on the right was an indicator for the lane that was going to continue going straight. The light on the left used to go red, solid yellow, and then at the very bottom on the left, a solid green turn arrow, right? And then on the right, for the lane that was going to be going straight, a solid green light.
Yeah.
What they've implemented now is, because people didn't know, and it used to be that if it was a solid green turn arrow, that meant your turn was protected and you could go and nobody was going to be coming from the other direction.
Yeah.
If it was just the solid green light on the right, which indicated to the lane that was going to be going straight that they could keep going straight, the indication to you in the left turn lane based off of that was supposed to be, I can turn left here, but it's not protected.
Yes.
So now, because people are idiots, they had to change it.
Yeah.
So now we have 4 lights. I have a solid red, I have a solid yellow, I have a blinking yellow left turn signal to let you know that you can turn left here, but you should yield to oncoming traffic, and then the solid green, meaning this is a protected left-hand turn. When they implemented that, for the first 2 months afterwards at every left turn lane, it was fucking chaos. Because the people who understood it beforehand were looking at this light and going, what does the little yellow turn light mean? The people who didn't know what it meant were already confused from before, so this just added double complexity and another layer of things for them to not understand while behind the wheel of their vehicle.
Yeah.
Absolute chaos.
We have one intersection that's like I have to take every day to and from work to my house, and it has one of those where like I've had more. I've never, like I said, I've never been in a car to car accident, but I've been in more near accidents at that intersection than any, because people, instead of looking at the light above their car, they look across at the people, and so like one side with the left turn will get the left turn arrow and the green light on the right on like the lane, because there's no reason for that lane not to go, but the other side does not have a green light. They still have a red while the turn signal's active,
Right.
but they just look and see the other side going straight, and they're like, oh boy, I can go straight too, and then they almost hit you because they're idiots, and then they honk at you because they're incompetent.
Right.
God, I hate driving.
Yeah, I love the instant honk whenever you fucked up, but it's that combination of I'm embarrassed that I fucked up, and I'm mad and afraid of what just happened in this moment, so my initial human response is to lash out. That's my favorite. Yeah.
To round this all back to Dota before we close completely, the thing that the comparison I always think of is that when people flame and rage in Dota, is because you feel anonymous, and there's such a similar aspect of that when you're driving and like you flip somebody off, or
I'm in my car, you aren't in here, you can't hurt me.
I'm never gonna see you again, like because we're both driving, and that's like something that I always think about is like when I'm in a car, I don't road rage, similar to how I very rarely flame, but like when I'm in a car, if somebody like honks at me, I'll just give them the finger, right? Because like they need to like leave me alone. Like why are you honking? The light just turned green. But I would not do that in real life if they were like, hey, can you please move? Like if we're walking, because it's like that like little shroud of anonymity, and that's something I think about all the time when people flame in Dota or road rage. It's like, man, anonymity does weird things to people. Anyway,
well, people should read the patch notes. That's right.
Yeah,
anyway. I guess that's where I was going with that story. Is nobody read the patch notes about what was going on.
That's fair
with the left turn arrow there.
We don't have that, by the way. So hopefully it doesn't come here.
Oh, you will. Everybody will have it eventually because
Maybe you guys are like the testing ground.
I think it started, if I remember correctly, it started further west, like in California and Oregon and Washington, and it started to creep its way. It'll get there because everybody's an idiot, and that's what in this country everybody's an idiot.
It's constantly amazing how stupid people are and how like careless people are when they're driving multiple ton vehicles that kill people on a daily basis. I'm just astounded by that fact on like every moment I'm driving. I'm like, how are you so reckless? Like you could literally die in the next 10 seconds. Like this is such a dangerous vehicle. God. Anyway,
I'm with you. And I've been in car wrecks where it was close and frightening. That that one last year was maybe the scariest close call I've ever had. And like was me doing everything I could. Like that one in particular was a really shitty one because the best case scenario for me, like the split second decision that I had to make was I either collide with this person who has blown through a stop sign right in front of me while I'm going 55 miles an hour, in which case I probably die and she most likely dies because I'm going 55 miles an hour and going to slam into her from the driver's side. Or I can slam on my brakes, veer into the left lane, and ram into the back of another car. That was the best case. That was the unfortunate best case scenario in that instance, because of an idiot, because of someone who didn't give a shit and didn't have the decency to hang around afterwards.
Yeah. I mean, in that vein, for telling stories, when I got hit by a car, I was crossing the street to work. To be fair, I was jaywalking, but like in my area, you have to jaywalk. Like there's no way to go to like a proper crossing that's not like 5 minutes out of the way. But so I was walking, and of course I walked both ways, and some lady was just like going 35, like right past the stoplight, and just wasn't paying attention, and she just like rammed into me, and I shattered her windshield with my head. And like I very luckily did not get like paralyzed or killed, but that is not an experience I advise anybody else to get. Although it did help pay for my college, to be fair. But I'm sure
you get that at least.
It's I would.
Did she get in huge trouble? I mean, like.
Well, I mean, like, New York is a no-fault state, so I think if it was like her first major accident, they just kind of waive it, and like the insurance pays for my hospital bills, and then they give you money. And like, I mean, the lady was like, it wasn't like malicious, right? It's just like, you have that moment where you're not paying attention, and then suddenly you almost kill somebody.
Yeah, everything changes.
So, yep.
All right. On that really kind of maybe depressing note, maybe kind of depressing.
Oh, it's a happy note, dude.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm okay for
Ursi's
now.
alive, and he got free college out of it, folks.
Well, I would not say that. I still.
It might be the reason that he's not 6K MMR and playing Dota professionally, though.
It'll be the reason 20 years from now that I need a chiropractor or something to work on my back. But for now,
we'll have to take a look.
The reason I don't sleep on hard floors.
We'll have to take another look at that.
Skull injuries.
Take another look at that brain injury and make sure that's not why you're not 6K, not 7K.
No, it's messed up my memory. I'll say that much.
Oh, well, see, there you go.
Or maybe I'm just delusional and like, because my memory has always been bad. But maybe now I just have something to blame about it.
It's time to sue somebody for the millions that you lost not being part of that EGTI 5 team.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. If you guys want to find us, we're at defenseofthepatients.com. New website incoming within like a week. It sounds like those guys are working double time on it, and everything that we have been seeing is awesome. And this time we mean it. This time we actually mean it because we paid them to do it, and they're delivering. So shout out to those guys, and we'll shout out their crew whenever it's done and delivered and everything, and make sure they get fair notice for it. The patreon.com/defense of the patients has been blowing up. Thank you for all the support. Right now, if you go donate to the Patreon, here's what happens. For the month of February, Older Cinity, he's agreed to give you all replay reviews for the $5 or more crowds.
You've only got like another week and a half of February to claim. So
you got that. You got an already recorded and up there waiting for you to listen to patron exclusive episode of Defense of the Patients, ready to go, and a new one coming February 28th. Then you also have the great prizes that are available, or the great rewards that are available there, and we're working on something with the Discord. We haven't talked at all completely, but we're working that right now. If you want to support the show, another way, you could always click through the Amazon banner or on the website, or you could leave us a review on iTunes. That's a huge help. It gets us better positioning with the what's hot and all that good stuff. It's a really big help, and Roland loves reading those, so give him something to do on the show.
I do too, although I never get to.
Oh, well, you can do the next one, Ersty. I'll tell Roland I told you so.
That's all right. I don't want to deprive Roland.
Yeah.
That guy needs
something
stuff
to do on the show. You can also find us at .p_show on Twitter. We're on Facebook. We're on all sorts of cool stuff. defenseofthepatients@gmail.com is where you can send us emails. Email us your questions for the .p Q&A, or you can leave us a voicemail, 888-410-7150. That's 888-410-7150. We've already got at least one voicemail, I know, ready to go for that, maybe two. So if you want to leave a voicemail and you can't call into the show Monday night, you can always do it that way. I think that's going to be it, Ersi. Twitch.tv/.ptv1, twitch.tv/.ptv. You can watch a Sunday team stream. And youtube.com/.ptv1 is where you can catch out those videos if you miss it on the Sunday stream. And of course, the Theorycraft Thursday videos and all of our podcasts. So I think that's it.
And our replay reviews.
And the replay reviews, which are incoming in a big way. So,
yes, in a big way. In a time-consuming way. In a way I'm looking forward to.
Yeah. Really looking forward to, I'm sure. All right.
No, it's going to be fun. It's there's a lot of them. I'm pleasantly surprised with how many I have to do.
That's good. I'm glad to see everybody hit you up. And decently before the end of the month, so.
Yeah.
All right, folks, that's going to be it for us. Until next time, this is Cyphus for Ursinity saying good luck